China's foreign ministry voiced strong criticism on Monday following the U.S. State Department's revision of a fact sheet about Taiwan, particularly after it removed a line that previously stated the U.S. did not support Taiwan's independence. The United States is gravely backpedaling on its Taiwan policy. This move sends an erroneous message to what we refer to as separatist forces in Taiwan. The historical context dates back to 1949, when China split after the Civil War, with the victorious communists taking control of mainland China and the defeated nationalists fleeing to Taiwan, where they established a separate government. Taiwan has maintained its own democratic government and military, but it has never officially declared independence, a stance that China insists upon changing. The Taiwan Strait, a narrow waterway, separates Taiwan from mainland China's eastern coastline. The revision to the U.S. State Department's fact sheet removed the statement, "We do not support Taiwan independence," a shift that Taiwan's government acknowledged with approval, although it did not address the specific removal of the phrase. This is not the first time such a statement has been altered. The reason behind the modification remains unclear, and it is unknown whether it signals a broader shift in U.S. policy under President Donald Trump, who returned to office last month. In light of these changes, there are growing concerns within Taiwan that Trump may not offer the same unwavering support for the island that his predecessor, former President Joe Biden, had extended. Trump, in particular, has publicly criticized Taiwan in the past, pointing out that Taiwan's booming semiconductor industry has siphoned off business from the U.S. and advocating for the return of such business to the U.S. mainland. Meanwhile, China continues to assert its claim over Taiwan and has ramped up military exercises around the island, which is home to over 23 million people. The tensions surrounding the island remain a significant geopolitical issue, with the international community closely watching any further shifts in U.S. policy. On Monday, European leaders met in Paris to address concerns over a significant shift in U.S. policy on the war in Ukraine under Donald Trump's administration. French President Macron called the emergency meeting at the Élysée Palace to discuss the situation. As a result, they are considering increasing defense spending and possibly sending peacekeepers to Ukraine if a ceasefire occurs. Macron spoke with Trump just before the summit, but no joint statements were made, as decisions were left to bodies like the EU and NATO. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen was open to sending troops, but warned that U.S. support for Europe was crucial. She also cautioned against a quick ceasefire that might give Russia a chance to regroup and attack again. Scholz stressed that NATO's strength relies on collective action and that dividing security responsibilities between Europe and the U.S. is unacceptable. Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Andrew Furey raised concerns after White House officials confirmed U.S. President Donald Trump is very serious about annexing Canada. As Trump threatened heavy tariffs, Canadian premiers traveled to Washington, D.C. for trade talks. During their visit, they met with White House officials including Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair. Afterward, BC Premier David Eby firmly rejected the idea of Canada joining the U.S. as a 51st state.
"This will never happen."
Blair warned them not to dismiss Trump's statements as jokes. Trump has claimed Canada would benefit under U.S. rule, promising lower taxes and stronger military protection. Meanwhile, he has imposed tariffs, including a 25% tax on all imports and a 10% energy levy starting March 4th, with additional tariffs on steel and aluminum set for March 12th. He recently introduced reciprocal tariffs, calling them the big one. He urged Canadian leaders to unite and strategize, warning that Washington is ignoring attempts at cooperation. He warned that Trump's actions could threaten Canada's sovereignty. He echoed former Prime Minister Stephen Harper's stance that there is no price too high to defend Canadian independence. Former U.S. Ambassador to Canada David Cohen dismissed Trump's annexation rhetoric, emphasizing he lacks the authority to make Canada a U.S. state. While Trump's tariffs may hurt key industries, Cohen believes they won't cripple Canada's economy. He expects U.S. domestic pressure will force Trump to reconsider. The Canadian government is reassessing its business dealings with American companies in response to potential tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. Treasury Board President Jeanette Petitpas-Taylor, a member of the government's Canada-U.S. Relations Committee, confirmed that the federal government is currently reviewing the scope of its contracts with U.S. companies. The government is focusing on where these contracts are provided and their potential implications for Canada's economy and international relations. The Canadian government is considering all options for retaliation should U.S. tariffs be imposed. While Canada aims to avoid such measures, officials are prepared to respond appropriately if tariffs become a reality. The government is closely monitoring the situation, and all departments are involved in examining the contracts they hold with American firms. This comes as the threat of tariffs looms, particularly with Trump's proposed automobile duties, expected to take effect around April 2nd. Trump has not yet clarified which countries will be affected or the specific tariff rates. In addition to automobile duties, Trump has announced plans to implement reciprocal tariffs as early as April. These would involve increasing U.S. duties on goods from other countries to match the tax rates that those countries impose on U.S. imports. Earlier this month, Trump paused his intention to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods, as well as a lower 10% levy on Canadian energy products. Trump also signed executive orders to apply 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports into the U.S., including Canadian products, starting March 12. Public Services and Procurement Canada, the department responsible for managing federal procurement, does not track specific data on contracts with American companies, making it difficult to provide an exact number. However, Canada's Public Accounts Report indicates that the country spent $20.7 billion on outsourcing in the 2023-24 fiscal year, a significant increase from previous years. This rise in outsourcing reflects a growing reliance on external suppliers, including those from the U.S., for various goods and services. Britain has accelerated the release of its major steel industry consultation, publishing it weeks ahead of schedule, in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's recent announcement of new tariffs on all steel imports. The plan for steel will explore the industry's most pressing challenges, including high energy costs and what the government describes as unfair trading practices from other countries, according to the Department for Business and Trade. The Labour government had previously pledged £2.5 billion or $3.15 billion to support and modernize the sector, promising to unveil a broader steel strategy later in the spring. However, given the urgency created by Trump's tariff announcement, the government has chosen to move forward with its consultations sooner than planned.
The UK steel industry has a long-term future under this government. We made that promise during the election, and we're following through on it now.
Reynolds has also been actively engaging with U.S. officials in an effort to secure an exemption for British steel and aluminum products, emphasizing their critical role in American defense and manufacturing supply chains. Last week he stressed that Britain would work to persuade the U.S. government that its steel and aluminum exports should be spared from these new trade restrictions. Despite these efforts, Trump confirmed on Sunday that his administration will move forward with imposing a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports, adding to the existing duties already in place. Earlier in February, while discussing tariffs in general, Trump suggested that a deal with Britain could potentially be worked out, though no concrete details have been provided. UK Steel, the leading industry body, has warned that these tariffs could be devastating for British steel manufacturers, as the United States represents the second-largest export market for UK steel, with an annual trade value exceeding £400 million. With growing concerns over the impact of these tariffs, British leaders are under pressure to respond effectively. The coming weeks will likely see intensified discussions between the UK and US governments, as well as increased efforts to safeguard the interests of the British steel industry amid an uncertain global trade environment. President Donald Trump has filed an emergency appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court to dismiss Hampton Dellinger, the head of the Office of Special Counsel, OSC. This case, Besant v. Dellinger, raises important questions about the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches, especially concerning independent federal agencies. Dellinger, appointed by President Joe Biden in 2023, oversees the OSC, an independent agency handling whistleblower retaliation allegations. His dismissal, made by the White House Presidential Personnel Office, occurred without the required cause specified by Congress, such as inefficiency or malfeasance. Trump's appeal is part of a broader legal debate about whether presidents should have the authority to remove officials from independent agencies, or whether Congress can establish protections from political influence. The OSC and other agencies, like the National Labor Relations Board, have safeguards to prevent political interference in their decisions. These agencies were designed to make decisions independently from the current administration's goals. Currently, Dellinger's case is under emergency review by the Supreme Court. The court could rule quickly, but might not address the larger constitutional questions at play. A lower court temporarily allowed Dellinger to remain in his post, but Trump's administration appealed this decision. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the temporary order wasn't appealable, but one Trump-appointed judge dissented. If the Supreme Court agrees with the appeals court, it may offer insights into how the justices view the broader legal issues surrounding presidential power. This case is one of many lawsuits challenging Trump's actions, including his efforts to alter birthright citizenship and freeze spending approved by Congress. Some of these cases may eventually reach the Supreme Court. While Trump appointed 3 conservative justices, their rulings haven't always aligned with his interests. The outcome of these cases, including Dellinger's appeal, could provide crucial insight into the future of executive power and independent agencies. China's National Development and Reform Commission, NDRC, has emphasized that the country's political, economic, and social environment is highly favorable for the development of the private sector. Zheng Bei, the NDRC's deputy head, outlined upcoming policy initiatives aimed at addressing the challenges faced by private firms, including easing market access restrictions and improving infrastructure accessibility. This comes after President Xi Jinping's rare meeting with top technology industry leaders, where he encouraged them to have confidence in China's market and governance system. Xi's remarks reflect concerns over slowing growth, the impact of U.S. tariffs, and a deepening debt crisis in China's property sector. While aiming to foster the private economy, the government also plans to revise its negative investment list and focus on resolving issues such as the affordability of financing. These moves are part of a broader strategy to ensure that private enterprises, which play a crucial role in China's economic output and technological innovation, remain competitive in both domestic and global markets. Despite these initiatives, some experts suggest that China still requires more consumption-driven reforms and stimulus to further stabilize corporate confidence. As the private sector contributes more than half of China's tax revenue, over 60% of its economic output, and nearly 70% of technological innovation, these reforms could be vital for maintaining growth amid challenging external and internal conditions.